QBO Gym, and the QBO Gym is a place where we have numerous hands-on exercises that simulate real-life scenarios that you may encounter as a bookkeeper. Each month covers a variety of new topics and scenarios, and to make it a little bit easier for you, we break it down into 4 different sections. So if you are looking to work on your bookkeeping skills, this is the place for you. And if you would like an entire month's worth of exercises to do on your own, be sure to join our free 5-day bookkeeping challenge. All you need to do is click on the link in the description. But let's get into today's exercise, which is coming from our June Year 1 warm-ups section. When I click into that area at the top here, there is an animated video to give you a little synopsis of what is going on in Craig's world this month. He is our fictitious business owner. Further down is an interactive pre-assessment quiz that relates to the video up above. Below that are the exercises in this section. And then at the bottom here is an optional area where after you have gone through all of the posts in this section and completed them, you will unlock some sample marketing posts that you can use on your LinkedIn to share with everyone what you have learned so far. So let's dive into today's exercise where we are going to practice adding expenses. Go ahead and click on that link to have it pulled up for you. I have it over here on the right side of my screen, so let's read through the scenario. Craig left you a stack of receipts for a variety of things he purchased since you were there last, including a return receipt for an item he purchased at Hicks Hardware. Click the link beneath the animated warm-ups video on the previous page to grab a copy as you will use it for this exercise. So if we go back up here to the top, here is that animated video here in the gym, and below that is a button that says stack of receipts. You want to click on that to have it downloaded. Once it downloads, you will open up this PDF, and this is what it will look like. These are the 3 receipts that we are going to be using for this exercise. So definitely download it and keep it handy as we go through. You will need to be in the sample company to do this exercise. If you are not sure how to get into the sample company or get your own free QBOA account, be sure to click on the link in the description. I have the sample company here on the left side of my screen. This is the dashboard and what it will look like once you sign into the sample company. So now that we've got this all situated and ready to go, let's go ahead and begin the exercise. One of the challenges of receiving receipts is knowing which account they were paid out of. If you can't tell from the receipt itself, you need to ask Craig. For these exercises, we are going to assume that you spoke to Craig and that he said he used his credit card to make both purchases. The return was credited back to Craig's card. Also, as a note here, we will not be dealing with sales tax in this exercise, so just keep that in mind as we're going through. All right, so first we are going to start with the receipt for Hicks Hardware. Now, normally Craig buys these items from Tanya's nursery, but there was a supply shortage and what he needed was out of stock. The ones at Hicks are much more expensive, so he will return his stock as soon as it comes, as some comes in at Tanya's. So the first one we are looking at is this receipt right here for Hicks Hardware. All right, so to record this expense, the first thing we need to do is click on the plus new button and then select expense. The plus new button is on the top left corner of the screen. Click on that. And then in the vendors column is the expense transaction. Go ahead and click on that. And once it appears for us, we're going to begin filling it out. So in the payee field, we want to select Hicks Hardware. Here is that payee field. Click that down arrow and you can either scroll until you find Hicks Hardware or you can start typing in their name. Either way is fine. Once you find it, go ahead and click on their name. Now, if you remember from the scenario, Craig had used his credit card to make this purchase. So in the payment account field, we need to select MasterCard. Click that down arrow in the payment account field, select MasterCard. And then moving on, in a real life scenario, you would need to enter the date the items were actually purchased, meaning whatever was on the receipt. But for the purpose of this exercise and future ones, we're just going to leave the date, the default as is, which will default to today's date. So you can just leave that as is for the purposes of this exercise. In real life, you want to make sure that this date matches the date on the receipt itself. Also here, note that the category and amount from the last expense for Hicks Hardware automatically appears. That is right here. You can see that showing up. This is what was on the last transaction for Hicks Hardware. In account and settings, you can choose whether or not to have these forms pre-filled with information from previous transactions, just like this. In order to turn it on or turn it off, you would click on the gear icon from the main page and then go to account and settings. In the advanced tab, you would find automation and you can turn it on and off that way if you want. Just know if you keep it on, you can always delete it or overwrite what is there. So it's not like it's going to stay there forever for you. All right, so next we have to decide if you should add the items to the category details grid or the item details grid. If Craig wants to track how many he has on hand, which is inventory product, or how many he has purchased over time, which is non-inventory product, they should go in the item details grid, which would be down here. And this also must be set up in the products and services area. If not, if he is not tracking them, if it's not inventory, then they will go in the category details grid. So in Craig's case here, he tracks bags of soil, but he does not track bags of mulch. So we're going to enter the mulch first. So if we go back into here, we could see here's the soil and then here is the mulch. The mulch he does not track, but the soil he does. So let's go ahead and start filling out the expense. In the category grid, in the category field, we want to select job expenses, job materials, plants, and soil. And the reason that it has all of these different things is because this is this is the parent account, a sub account, and then another sub account there. So that's why it's written the way that it is. Now, as a note here, if you start typing in plants and soil, you'll be presented with two identical choices in the dropdown. The first option is the expense account, and the second one is an income account. They are in alphabetical order based on the full account name. So this job expenses, job materials, plants, and soil, which is the expense one, and then landscaping services, job materials, plants, and soil is the income one. In a real life scenario, though, you may want to consider changing the names so that you can more easily tell which one is which. So if I click into this, I can actually see that plants and soil is right up here. But if I started to type in plant for plants and soil, you see those two that are presented. This first one is the one that we want. It's that expense account. And this second one is the income account. So whether you type it in that way or if you scroll the way that I had just showed you, you want to make sure that it is the one that says job expenses, job materials, plants, and soil. I can move this over a little bit if you need to see that. All right, so let's go ahead and add a description for this. In the description field, let's type mulch so that we know what this is actually for. So click into that box and go ahead and type mulch. In the amount field, we want to type 125 because that is how much the mulch was, a total of 125. So delete what is currently there, go ahead and type 125. And you'll know that we do not need to indicate the number of bags of mulch because Craig is not tracking that. That is why we are using the category details grid, not the item details grid. So this one is good, but now we need to add the soil. So we're going to click on the arrow to open up the item details grid. So click that down arrow right next to item details so that it expands and you can see now this grid is open up. In the product service field, we're going to select landscaping soil. So if you click into that box, you can scroll to the third one actually down on the screen here, or you could type it in. Once you find it, go ahead and click on it. You will see the rest of the information is going to appear for us, but we need to update it a little bit because if you look at the receipt here, you will see that he bought 20 bags of soil. And so we need to, in the quantity field, type 20. So click into that field, type 20. When you hit the tab key over, you will see that QBO is automatically making the calculation for you. Now note that the rate and the description are pre-filled from the products and services list. This would be the rate that Craig typically receives at Tanya's. We can change it for this transaction at Hicks and it will not affect the rate on transactions in the future. So the description 2 feet or 2 cubic feet bag and the rate $6.50 comes from that information in the products and services list that I just mentioned. And the rate is what Craig receives from Tanya. Since Craig plans to go back to her when the supply issue is resolved, we're just going to change it in the expense transaction. So in the amount field, we're going to type 195 because that is what it is for the total right here. So click into that amount field, type 195, and you will notice if you hit the tab key out that QBO has automatically calculated the rate based on the number that we entered, the number and the quantity and the amount. The numbers are now going to be matching on the receipt. 20 at $9.75 each is $195 for a total of $320, which is what is on the receipt. So this one is recorded properly and we were all done. So we're going to enter the next expense, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. So we're going to click on Save and Close, which is on the bottom right corner of the sample company. So go ahead and click on that and you will see that expense transaction has been saved. And now we can move on. Craig has also left you a receipt for his payment to Cal Telephone for monthly telephone service. You had previously set this up as a recurring bill, but it has not shown up in your list, so you need to pull it up manually and mark it as paid. So to do that, we're going to click on the gear icon and then select recurring transactions. So the gear icon is on the top right corner of the screen. Click on that. And then under lists, you want to select recurring transactions. Now you'll note that Cal Telephone payment is set up as a bill transaction. You can see that right here. Remember that a bill requires 2 steps. First, you need to put in the bill and then later you need to make the payment. If the amount is the same every month, you may want to talk to Craig about setting up a recurring payment that is automatically withdrawn from Craig's account. You could do this to save time and hassle and you would set it up as a recurring expense instead. If, however, Craig has issues with cash flow or he relies on not having to pay the bill right away, you would want to leave it as is. Note too that you may see a next date that is in the past, that's in this column here. And this is because it is the sample company. In a real life scenario, you would see this represent the next occurrence of the transaction in the future. So as you're looking at this, if you say, hey, this looks like a past date, it's just the sample company. So don't worry too much. In a real life, it would be a future date. So in the line for Cal Telephone, in the action column on that first row, we're going to click on the down arrow next to edit and then select use. So click the down arrow on this first row, go ahead and select use. Now the bill date will automatically be the date you created the transaction. In a real life scenario though, you would want to adjust this to the date of the actual bill. For the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to leave the default. So we're just going to leave all of this as is. In a real life scenario, update the dates as needed because dates are very important as you're entering things on the books. So we're going to go ahead and click on the black save button. It's actually white down here. Mine's white at this time. Yours may be black. Either way, there is that save button. Go ahead and click on that. And then we're going to click on mark as paid, which is right under the balance due amount. Click on that. And in the bank credit amount field or account field, the MasterCard should already be selected, which it is for me. And remember, he had paid with his credit card this particular bill. So everything here is looking good. We don't have to make any other adjustments. We are just going to go ahead and save and close it. That's the green button on the bottom right corner. Go ahead and click on that. And now that bill payment has been saved and it's been marked as paid. All right, so the return receipt. So we have done now this receipt for Hicks Hardware, this bill that has been paid, and now we're looking at this return receipt for the 8 bags of soil for a total of $78. So Tanya's soil had come back in stock, and so Craig returned what he had purchased from Hicks Hardware. Craig purchased this with his MasterCard, so the return would need to go back on the card, and so here is how you would record it. We need to go to the plus new button and then select credit card credit. So on the top left corner, click that plus new button, and then under vendors, select credit card credit. In the payee field, we want to select Hicks Hardware. So click the down arrow in the payee field. You can either scroll down or you can start typing in their name. Either way is perfectly fine. Once you find their name though, go ahead and click on it. In the bank credit account, it should already say MasterCard, which is what we want because the return is going to go back to the MasterCard. We are going to click on the arrow to open up the item details grid because remember, soil is an inventory product and inventory products need to go in that item details grid. So you can click the arrow next to the item details to open up the grid itself. In the product service field, we need to use the same account that we used on that expense transaction so that it is going back to that account. In the product service field, then we are going to select landscaping soil. So if you click into this box, you will see that it is the third one listed here. Go ahead and select it. In the quantity field, we need to type 8 since that is how many he is returning. So type that 8. And then if you remember in the rate, it was $9.75. So click into that rate field, type $9.75. If you hit the tab key over, you will see that QBO makes the calculation automatically for you with the amount being $78, which is exactly what matches here on that return receipt. And that's all good to go. We have nothing left to do on this one. We're going to just click on the green Save and Close button on the bottom right corner. Go ahead and click on that. And now that has been saved, and that's it. So if you like this exercise and you'd like to do more like it, be sure to join our free 5-day bookkeeping challenge. All you need to do is click on the link in the description. We move through the warm-up section with our next exercise where we practice creating a recurring contract. And I will see you in the next video.